What's up, y'all? Thanks so much for clicking on the video. My name is Leah, and let's recap and review Real Housewives of Miami. This is season 7, episode 7, and let me just say this. I am so conflicted on this move that Gertie pulled because on one hand, I'm like, get her. Get her, stick it to Julia. But then on the other hand, I'm just like, not at your own event. It kind of made me cringe the same way I did with Kenya and them posters. I was like, ruin somebody else's event, but not yours. But she gagged the room. When I tell you, Miss Gertie gagged the room. They didn't know what to do. But let's get into this review. Y'all know sometimes before we get into the review, we get a little spicy just a little bit. And honestly, I only have 2 things I want to talk to y'all about. And honestly, it's one thing altogether, but Gertie was on Watch What Happens Live, and I was interested in her responses. So first up, she was asked, does she think her act of showing the text messages, was it justified or was it messy? And they also did a polling count, and the results from the poll actually surprised me. So let's get into that video.
Gertie showing the text, justified or messy? I mean, maybe both.
A little bit of both.
A little bit of both?
That's fine.
Yes.
That's fine.
Was there what did you feel like when you were up there? Were you feeling like it was landing?
Well, first of all, there was 2 portions of my party. As a party planner, I know how to kind of maneuver. The first part was a real giving the flowers to my family, of course, and thanking everyone and talking about my testimony. And thereafter, I said goodbye to my family, and then I had the after party where I knew this was the right time, and I decided, if not now, when?
Okay. The audience is saying messy. After seeing Gertie.
So, like I said, I was surprised by the percentage because I think it boiled down to like 17% thought that Gertie was justified, 83% felt like it was messy. To me, it was a combination of both, okay? Like she was definitely justified in sticking it to Julia, and it was also messy. But I was just surprised at how big of a difference it was because on my timeline on Twitter, most people were like, yeah, Gertie, get her. People were like, stick it to her. They was clapping up in arms for her. And then there were some people like me that were like in the middle that were like, yeah, she's justified, but maybe not at this place we do this, And I didn't go on the hashtag to see if other people had other things to say, but it was positive on that end for me when it came to Gertie and what she did. So seeing that on Watch What Happens Live, I was like, ooh. So I'm wondering, are the tides about to change on Gertie in a sense of like, most of the fandom was like on her side. They were really like, yeah, girl, like whatever you do to Julia, it's like you got it. But now that she has done something, people are kind of like, ooh, no, that was tasteless, that was tactless. And I'm starting to see more of those types of comments, especially on Instagram. So I'm very curious to see how things will progress, especially in the fandom by the time we get to the end of the season, especially when it comes time to the reunion. And speaking of the reunion, Gertie was asked a fan question on Watch What Happens Live. Somebody called in and they asked her about what Stephanie said, where Stephanie felt like, she said the whole thing about like Gertie needs to let go and not hold on to grudges. And I'm bringing this up because Gertie also mentioned that she has more receipts to pull out at the reunion as a response. So let me play that clip for you.
What was your reaction when Stephanie said on Watch What Happens Live that you just want to hold grudges and suggest that you forgive, forget, and move on?
Never gonna forget, but what you see is I do try to move forward, not once, not twice, but then it comes to a point where when someone's gonna play in your face and disrespect you, you have to set these boundaries. And this Gertie 2.0 is not taking any mess from anyone anymore. And this is my destiny, my truth, and my life. And I'm doing it my way. So that's that. But Stephanie, honestly, talking about the grudges, to be honest, it's her her opinion, but I think there's a lot of things that she doesn't know. So in watching things develop, and also at the reunion, there'll be a lot of other things that are going to be layered and revealed, and I think that everyone's going to be wowed.
So I'm definitely wondering what else does Gertie have? Because I feel like she's proven her point, if you ask me. Like when it came to Julia posting that statement to get ahead of all of this, and then Gertie came out with screenshots of their text message conversation with the voice note of wishing Julia happy birthday. That was enough for me to realize Julia is is weird. She's a weirdo. So I'm just kind of like, what else you got, girl? And is it damning? Because I'm like, are the text messages, because they didn't zoom in, I wish they would have zoomed in them text messages. Like give me screenshots, I want to read it for myself. But I'm just like, the text messages to me are enough. But I guess Gertie is like, I got way more information, way more. And I low key kind of want to see it, but I kind of feel like she doesn't need to give it to us because Julia's a weirdo. We know she weird. But hey, do what you got to do, bro. Do what you got to do. But let's get into this review. All right, y'all. So let's get into this review. So we open up and we have this scene where we have Martina, Julia, and the little boys. I think their names are Luca and Jax. I think they're 3 and 4. I think that was the ages, or maybe 1 and 3. Either way, cute little boys. They're on the farm. You see Martina being loving towards the kids. Julia is actually doing a confessional with them, trying to get them to smile and introducing them to us. We then see Adriana pull up. She is instating the 6 feet rule and asking, can I get close? Like, y'all cool with that? And they're like, yeah, of course. She also was like, where's the other one? And when she came onto the property, I think Martina was holding the youngest one, which I think is Luca, and then Jax, which is the older one. He was playing with a goat, like walking around with the goat. So we then see Alexia pull up, and you can already tell that there's tension between Adriana and Alexia, because Alexia keeps calling herself Tia, which means auntie in Spanish. And then you got Adriana saying, I'm their aunt. Like, and they're both wearing neon. You have Adriana saying, ooh, look, the battles of the neons. But then you have Alexia bringing donuts. The little boys seem to really like Alexia. That probably means that they've had more time with her. And Adriana's in her confessional being like, I don't have to bribe them with donuts. I'm going to be here for the ups and the downs and when they need somebody around. And so then you got Alexia in her confessional talking about, well, they see, and I think the boys know who's the fun auntie. I said, okay. So then Julia gets a phone call from Karamo. If you don't know who he is, he, I think, was like the first like out gay black man on like Real World. And I think he did that show on Netflix, Queer Eye for the Straight Guy. And so he's being honored for like, I think the leadership award. It's a part of, I think it's part of GLAAD. I'm not sure. That he said something dealing with an LGBTQIA organization, and he's being honored, and he invited Julia and the rest of the ladies to come and be a part. Julia says she loves Karamo. His energy is always great. Like, it's just always a good time with him. So you get along with black men, but black women, it's an issue. Okay. So she's excited to invite all the ladies to come to that event with her, and she can't wait. I'm going to be honest, and I've said this before, but it makes me uncomfortable seeing Martina and Julia with them black kids, especially with the way that they have treated Gertie. Like I said, there needs to be like when white people adopt black children or any kids that are minorities or of a different race, they need to be evaluated. I'm telling y'all, going down the rabbit hole on TikTok and seeing adoptees who are either black or, people of color being adopted by white families, and how some of them don't make it out okay. They don't. They deal with a lot of self-hatred and a lot of like anti-blackness or anti their own community. And I'm just kind of like, girl, I don't know about y'all too. I don't. I don't. I maybe, it's wishful thinking for me to hope that Julia sees the backlash of this and starts to reevaluate her ways if she really is able to adopt these children. Because that's the other part that's kind of weird. Julia said in the last episode that the boys, that it wasn't finalized, that the adoption wasn't finalized, but yet we got them on camera. So maybe it was finalized and then she had the opportunity to do this. It's just, she's contradicting herself to me, because in one breath you're saying that you don't want all these people around your kids and that you want to make sure it's a safe space, but then on the other hand you're introducing them to a camera crew. It's not making sense, okay? It don't make sense to me. So we then get this scene of Larsa. She is currently deciding to move out of her penthouse apartment, and it was like they were in a house. At first I thought it was another apartment, but she says that she is looking for a house. So I'm thinking this was a house, and her and the realtor were walking around. Larsa says she loves her penthouse, but it's not homey enough, and she was like, my kids are getting older, she wants a house. So we actually see Stephanie pull up, because Stephanie is also looking for a bigger place for her and Moosin, and so she just decides to like pull through. Stephanie was very like nitpicky about what was like, in the house, and it didn't bother me too much, only because as an army brat and the way that my mom's mind and my dad's mind work, when we would move to houses, I'm like that too. Like I think about like, oh, when I'm putting on makeup or when I'm doing my hair, and if this is white, this is going to get messed up, or this or that. Like I do think those are sensible things to think about, but it was interesting to see like the back and forth between Stephanie and Larsa, because I wonder, like one of my mutuals posed a really good question on Twitter where they were like, Larsa taking a newbie under her wing might be disastrous, because they were pretty much like, Larsa's mouth is reckless, and it seems like Stephanie's mouth is reckless too. So how is that gonna like go? Like, are they gonna always be cool with each other, or is it gonna blow up in their faces? I'm interested in seeing it, because I do think a back and forth between Stephanie and Larsa would be entertaining. Definitely entertaining. But let's move on to the next thing. All right, y'all. So let's get into the gala portion. Now, I did look it up. It was called the National LGBTQ Task Force. That is the organization that is honoring Karomo. Is it Karomo or Karomo? Karomo. I think it's Karomo. Or am I thinking about Cuomo? Karamo. It's Karamo. They're honoring him with the Leadership Award. So we see everybody pull up to the event except Larsa. I don't remember why they said Larsa wasn't there, but she's not at the event. So everyone's there, and it was interesting to see like Gertie was still positive. Even though she was invited to the event and she still has issues with Julia, her energy was still like bubbly as like she always is. Versus when you see the way Julia came into her celebration of life, it's very like stoic and pulled together and very like stick in the mud. And I don't know if Julia feels like she has to posture in such a way to be accepted by Alexia, Marisol, and Larsa. But Alexia, Marisol, and Larsa don't act like that either. Like if they're there to have a good time, they're going to have a good time. If they like you, and they're going to celebrate you. It's just, Julia's just being weird at this point, if you ask me. But Gertie's there and she's excited. Then we see Kiki pull up and she's there with her friend Carmen Carrera. If you don't know who Carmen Carrera is, like Kiki said, she was on Drag Race, RuPaul's Drag Race. She was on the season 3, the season where Raja won. And I'm gonna be honest, I did not like Carmen that season, nor did I like her after she transitioned and she started to do, reality TV. I just, like, her personality just wasn't it for me, but I am willing to give her a chance. It's been years since I've seen her on a TV screen, so she might be totally different. I was a little worried about her being around Julia and Martina, knowing that, like, Martina is a TERF, and I was just kind of like, And Julia probably has the same views. So I hope nothing bad happens to her around them women and they don't try her. But I feel like Kiki, since she came in as Kiki's friend, they wouldn't try her too much because Kiki would probably cuss them out if they played with that lady. We find out that the way that Kiki and Carmen became friends is they used to, not used to, but they modeled together. They have modeled together. We hear Carmen talking about what happened with Victoria's Secrets, and I like vaguely remember that, but I do remember that there was a group of people petitioning for her to be on the runway. It was during the time where like people weren't being very inclusive when it came to modeling, whereas different body types or different like way people identify themselves was not accepted on the runway. So because that's why everyone was so happy when they saw Fenty, because Fenty basically gives everybody a job that look good. Don't matter if you're trans, if you're cisgender, if you're plus size, or if you're tiny. Like I've seen little people model for Fenty. It's like everybody can get a chance over at Fenty. And that's what really blew Victoria's Secrets out the water, is it's like y'all are trying to sell a fantasy, which is great. That is your business model, selling this fantasy. But it is kind of archaic. But now with the rise of conservatism, y'all probably about to make a whole bunch of money again, because the pendulum is swinging the other way. So, because I don't even hear people talk about the Victoria fashion shoot anymore. We'll probably see it now going forward. Like I said, conservatism is on the rise, all right? But as they're standing there in the huddle, we actually see Gertie, Alexia, Marisol, and Lisa having a conversation where Lisa is telling them about her sit down with Larsa. And they're like, great, we're glad y'all had a sit down. But she was like, yeah, but I did have to say something to Larsa. She was like, Larsa called me a narcissist and I called her a larcissist. And they were tickled by that. I didn't even remember her saying that to Larsa. But and you know what? I did. But I thought she was saying what Adriana always calls Larsa, a larcenist. Like someone who commits arson, not a larcenist in the sense of like she's narcissistic. I mean, both go. But I'm just kind of like, oh, I didn't get it when she said it. So next thing you know, we see Kawamo introduce himself to the ladies, and then we actually see the ladies get escorted to their table. So we see the ladies enter the banquet hall, and one thing I do like about Real Housewives of Miami, they actually go to like real events. Like it doesn't feel fake. Like you can clearly tell that was a real event because them tables were full. Like when they panned over the crowd, it looked like every table was full and the food that they had actually looked good. So they all sit down, and then next thing you know, you see Alexia and Marisol talking, and she's like, oh, look at what Todd sent me. And Marisol is like, why does Todd know what you're wearing? Because Alexia sent a picture of her dress to Todd, and she was like, well, I saw him last night. Stephanie is ear hustling, and so is Gertie, and pretty much Alexia says in her confessional, me and Todd ran into each other and we stayed together the whole entire night. It's like, we love each other. Like, of course we're going to spend time with each other. And she's like, listen, I think Marisol says in Spanish or something to the effect of like, girl, it sounds like a tug of war. Like y'all are going back and forth. You then hear Stephanie in her confessional say, I really feel like Alexia is blinded by how she feels about Todd because this doesn't make sense to me. So then while they're sitting there, Gertie lets it be known that she wants to make sure that everyone got her text message about her celebration of life. And it's supposed to celebrate her being, and I think it's like 1 year into remission from cancer, as well as like the organization that she's working with her friends want to make a large donation to another organization that helps with breast cancer. So everyone's like, yeah, definitely, like we'll be there. We then see Karamo get his award. He then starts talking about how, we all need to have fighters in our community, especially dealing with this administration and what's going on. We then have this moment where Lisa says to Julia that she's proud of her for bringing them to this event, as well as her adopting those 2 boys. And she was like, I'm proud to be your friend. And Julia is just so appreciative. She also talks about how like this is what a friendship circle should be like, because everyone seems to be having a good time. They're dancing, smiling, like everyone's having a good time. Granted, Larsa's not there. even though they brought her up. But I get what she means about like, this is how it should be. Then the screen goes black and it's like 72 hours later and we're at Gertie's event and she gagging the room. Gagging the room. So now it's time to get into Gertie's celebration of life. Honestly, the setup was really nice. I thought everything looked great, but it's Gertie. She's a party planner. Of course, it's gonna look great. We see her mixing and mingling with everybody. Everyone was invited and everybody showed up. The dress she had on was lovely. Okay, like, and I don't know if it probably is because I just finished watching Aquaman Lost Kingdom. I think that's the name of the second movie, and I would have loved to see that dress in water with the CGI antics to make it like flow and stuff. It's a beautiful dress she had on. So we see this sit down between Julia and Marisol, where Julia basically is telling Marisol that she hung out with Alexia and Todd, and she was like, it was confusing because she likes Todd, but she loves Alexia, but she doesn't like the way that Todd treats Alexia. She also let it be known that Todd wants to get back with Alexia. Marisol is over it. She's like, girl, are you serious? Like, no, like that can't happen. She goes on to say that, like, what are we going to do, basically? Then I guess Alexia noticed that they were talking about her, so she comes and sits down and was like, what y'all talking about? And they're like, oh girl, you. And she said, of course I felt it. Stephanie comes and sits down with her, and Stephanie starts to say how, you know, who are y'all talking about? What y'all talking about? And they were like, Todd. And she was like, of course. She was like, it's crazy because we had a whole entire party for him. And Alexia was like, no, we didn't. We did not have a whole entire party for him. And Stephanie is like, yeah, we did. Like the Grecian, you know, Greek narcissist party. And Alexia is like, no, that was all of you for y'all because y'all are narcissists. And so Stephanie was like, and so are you, Alexia. And Alexia was like, no, I'm too much of an empath. When I tell you I screamed when she said that, I said, Alexia, Alexia, no ma'am. No, ma'am. And so they start kind of going back and forth where, because Alexia was like, well, I feel like you're probably just self-absorbed. Like, and then Stephanie is like, and so are you, Alexia. She was just like, you know, it's weird that you always keep bringing up Todd because anytime someone speaks about Todd, you get really tense. And you can tell that Julia and Marisol are getting uncomfortable because they know what Stephanie is saying is right, but it's not Stephanie's place. Like, Stephanie's saying all the right things. It's that phrase, right message, wrong messenger. You don't know Alexia. I think they probably have only been filming with Stephanie for maybe like 2 or 3 weeks, maybe a month if we actually pushing it. So it's like within a month or 2 or 3 weeks of knowing me, you can't tell me nothing about my relationship. Like you can't. Maybe I might like think about it because it's like, okay, this is a new person that just came into the group and they're looking at this situation with fresh eyes, but I'm still not going to, like, your opinion's not going to hold weight to me because I don't know you. I don't value what you have to say about me because I don't know you. So you could tell that Alexia is getting irritated and it's getting awkward. It's getting real awkward because Alexia is getting tired of Stephanie. Stephanie says in her confessional, it just seems like Alexia lets Ty get away with everything with her. And she does. You then hear Alexia in her confessional being like, well, girl, like, do you want me to start talking about your husband? You want me to talk about Mawson? Like, why do you feel the need to talk about Todd? And honestly, this is the second time Stephanie has crossed, like, she stepped over the line because it's like, again, you don't know this lady to be speaking on her relationship. Like, valid points, but it should not be coming out of your mouth. So now it's awkward. And Marisol was like, oh, this is a nice event, like trying to break up the tension. Really gets broken up because Gertie decides to do her speech at that time. She speaks about how, you know, she hates that she has cancer, but she appreciates what cancer has done for her in her life, showing her a power that she never thought she had. On top of that, she is like eternally grateful to her sons and Russell's. She decides to give Russell flowers. You know, I want to give you your flowers. She just speaks about how she just doesn't, like, she didn't realize the beauty of her family fully. Like, the way her sons have shown up for her, the way Russell has shown up for her, it left her speechless in the confessional. Like, she was just in tears, and she was fighting back tears as she gave her speech. At the end of the speech, she said something to the effect of, like, if I'm sad, I'm sad. If you're sad, you're sad. If you're happy, you're happy. If you're mad, you're mad. The camera pans to Julia, and Julia has, like, this stern kind of look on her face, and then she was like, so, you know, be be who you are and blah, blah, blah. So everyone's talking about how beautiful the speech is. We then see her kiss Russell in the back of the stage. She also kisses her sons and she tells them thank you for coming, and she, sends them on their way because mama about to drop a bomb. Okay, mama about to get into some mess basically, and y'all don't need to be here. All right, so we then see Stephanie asks Alexia, do you want to go to the bar with me? Alexia's like, yeah, I'll come with you. She then is at the bar with the rest of the ladies talking about how Alexia is a little irritated with her. She speaks about how this is such a beautiful event. It didn't end messy like the other event. And Kiki is like, oh, you talking about the narcissist party? She was like, yeah. So Alexia kind of has this face like, okay, girl. And then Stephanie ends up saying, Alexia is a little annoyed that I keep bringing up Todd. And so Alexia is like, Todd is great. Todd is wonderful. He's so amazing. So then Stephanie says, oh my gosh, she's delusional now. So then you see them kind of argue back and forth where Alexia is just like, girl, the party had nothing to do with Todd. So then Stephanie tells Carmen, she's like, well, okay, girl, it didn't have nothing to do with Todd, but it was inspired by Todd. And Carmen doesn't really make a facial expression. What's interesting is Carmen was rumored to be she was going to be the first trans woman to be a housewife. And I didn't think that was true because I feel like they would have made a bigger deal other than it was online chatter about her being that. But in this scene and the other scene that we had, she's not very vocal. And I feel like that's probably why if she was supposed to be a friend of, or because I think they were saying she was supposed to be a full-time, then I saw people demote her to friend of. I think she's just a guest because she really wasn't speaking up. And the Carmen I know, based off of what I remember seeing on RuPaul's Drag Race and the other reality TV shows, was way more vocal. She had spice to her. And this one, you kind of felt like she was intimidated and a little uncomfortable because this was probably the second time she filmed and then they arguing in front of her. But, hopefully as time goes on and if we see her, she starts to get in the mix, okay? So Alexia is like, girl, stop talking about my man. And so they're about to really get into it, but then it's cut off because Gertie does what Gertie is about to do. Okay. It's now time for Gertie to set her event on fire. Okay. So she gets on stage and Gertie basically does this speech about how she wants transparency and honesty in the group and to set the lies straight so that they can move forward in a positive and honest direction. Everybody's looking around like, girl, what's about to happen? You hear Kiki said, oh my God. What's about to go down? You hear Adriana say, or Lisa, one of them says, oh, this is effing about Julia. And they're like, okay. So then you hear someone say, oh, shit. And then next thing you know, Gertie says, I guess a trigger word or something. And then her assistant puts on the Jumbotron on the projector, her text messages with Julia. And everybody gagged. She gagged that room. Marisol, mouth wide open. You got Lisa and Adriana being like, look. And the only thing that pissed me off about this, that I was like, Gertie, this was not the right move, even though I do feel as though she's justified, but I cringe. And the reason why I cringe is it reminded me of Kenya's situation, where it's you are well within your right to get at this person, but don't do it at your own event where it shifts the energy. Everybody was feeling love and the healing, and then, girl, you shifted it to mess. Okay? And I also didn't like the fact that now this gives Julia an opportunity to be the victim, because she was smirking while Gertie was saying her speech because she knew Gertie messed up, because she knew the group was going to be on her side. So everyone's like, girl. So Marisol is like, this is dirty. I don't like this. You hear Larsa say the same thing. Then Stephanie was like, all of her friends are here and this is supposed to be about cancer. Then you have Julia in her confessional being like, why is Gertie doing this? Isn't this supposed to be about beating cancer? And Gertie is standing up there smirking because she feels like, girl, I got you. And I mean, she did. But you could tell that Julia was uncomfortable because it was it was basically a public lashing. So then next thing you know, Gertie says, and now introducing the entertainment. It was these two acrobatists. And so Adriana and Lisa is like, girl, so what does this mean? What does this mean? And Lisa's like, are y'all not cool no more? Like, what's happening? So the camera or the episode goes back. So we find out that Julia and Russell had an interaction. Julia tried to say that, I think Russell thinks I'm the bad guy. Yes, girl, you stupid goat. You are the bad guy. You're the one being a weirdo. You're being a weirdo, Julia. You caused a beef with somebody for no reason. You are attacking this black woman with cancer, and you're adopting 2 little black boys. You're weird. You're weird, Julia. It's weird. It's like you gave up a genuine friendship with Gertie for what? For what? Because I can guarantee you, when we get down time to the reunion, I definitely think the tune of these women is going to change, because they be in the comments too. They see how pissed off people are at the way that y'all are behaving or reacting to Gertie. Julia is going to be on an island by herself at the reunion. Like, I genuinely feel like they're going to throw that lady under the bus. So I'm just kind of like, yeah, Julia, you are the bad guy. So then we see Russell having a conversation with Gertie, and Gertie's asking Russell, so what did Julia say to you? And Russell says she thinks y'all are in a good place. So then Gertie is like, how could she think we're in a good place when she is the one that reignited our situation, because she said she didn't want to bring our situation in front of everybody. So the move that she pulled, or the stunt that she pulled at Alexia's event, it basically, like, we're back to square one. And she's talking about when Julia decided to ask Daniel, what do you do when somebody says something that hurts you to your core? So Julia started it just like she began all of it. So as the flashback continues, you basically see Gertie just get more and more fed up as she's talking to Russell, because she's basically like, girl, you think we good? You think we good after that stunt you pulled? And she's just like, if I'm going to be the person that I said that I am in that speech, like, I'm not taking any, like, no more, like, stuff. Like, when I'm happy, I'm happy. When I'm sad, I'm sad. When I'm frustrated, I'm frustrated. When I'm mad, I'm mad. I have to be that person. I have to show her who I am, like the new Gertie 2.0, And so as she's in the back room, in her dressing room, like, retouching up her makeup, she's telling her assistant, when I say this word, I want you to project these text messages out for the public. And the assistant is like, okay, I got you. And then she's like touching up her makeup, and she's like, Michelle Obama says, when they go low, we go high, but sometimes when they go low, we go lower. And I said, yeah, girl. Yeah. And this to me, I can rock with Gertie with. I told y'all, Gertie is not my cup of tea, but I understand what she feels right now as a January Capricorn, like she is. Because 9 times out of 10, I have tried with you. I have decided, I have overanalyzed the situation. I have decided to, move with positivity with you. But it comes to a point where I'm going to have to show you who the hell I am. Okay, this reminds me so much of, what's it called? Doctor Strange, the episode 2, when Wanda was like, y'all have exhausted my patience, and I'm paraphrasing, but she said, I hope y'all understand what's about to happen right now is still me being reasonable with y'all. Okay, because that was during that scene when, what's his name? Doctor Strange was trying to tell Wanda to be reasonable, and she was like, bitch, I've been reasonable. And even what's about to happen now, I'm still being reasonable because I could shut it down. Okay, I can set it off up in here. Okay, and that is how I feel with Gertie. Like, she's trying with Julia. And if I'm somebody who doesn't even really care too much for Gertie, and I can see her trying to move forward and trying to move in a span of like positivity, then yeah, girl, do what you got to do. Now, do I wish she wouldn't have done this at her own event? Yes, I do. Because I just feel like cancer is a weird thing for a lot of people, because I don't think anybody's life has not been touched by cancer. Luckily, I've been blessed that I don't have like close relatives who have been accosted by cancer, but I do remember teachers, friends, parents, and siblings, and other people of that nature that have been harmed by like breast cancer specifically, and also like I think it was lung cancer with that one person. But it's just like I feel like everyone has been touched by cancer. So doing this at an event where we're celebrating your life, it was cringe. It was cringe, but it's like I also do feel like she's justified because Julia is trying it, girl. It's you trying, and at this point, we got to let you know what's up. I think the issue for a lot of the women, and I understand that people are mad at the way that they behaved and reacted after this. Because after the text messages were up, you immediately see Julia, Larsa, and Alexia be like, nah, that was disgusting. Like, this was like a public humiliation ritual. You got Marisol being like, this feels like Carrie, where Gertie got Julia all dressed up in white and just poured the blood on her. And I think the reason why they feel that way is because they think that this was premeditated. Whereas it's not on Gertie's behalf. She just thought about it on the spot. But I think in their mind, Gertie invited Julia to come to get embarrassed. And that's why they feel like it's another layer of like disgusting. But I will say their reaction to this versus when Julia threw the water on Gertie, it's night and day. It's night and day. And I told y'all, I still think they said what they needed to say to Julia when they were like, girl, that was wrong. Like, we didn't like that. But this reaction is honestly what should have happened, you know, when Gertie got the water thrown on her. So basically, production ends up asking Gertie in her confessional, like, what's the smoking gun? Like, why did you feel the need to show these text messages? And Gertie was like, basically, Julia was going around trying to say that, like, I begged her or I asked to be on the cruise with her. And that's not the case. So in the text message, they actually blow up a specific area where it pretty much says, I thought you wanted to be there and I would have enjoyed being there. Otherwise, I would have never suggested to join me and leave your kids in Russell. So pretty much saying Julia's lying. You asked me to be there and that's it. Like, you asked me to be there. I wasn't begging you to be there. I kind of feel like that there was no need for the text messages when it comes to that portion. Cause I'm just like, I guess for me, I just feel like we already know what it is. And maybe it's just because I feel like Julia is being a weirdo and a liar, but I can see in the moment Gertie really wants to prove her point. So there's that. So, you know, you have Larsa and Julia and Alexia, and Larsa's like, yeah, we got to go. Larsa's in her confessional, and y'all know I love me some Larsa down, but I was like, Larsa, shut up. Shut up. Because if the roles were reversed and you would have been in Gertie's position and Julia would have threw a drink on you, you would have been dragging it this whole entire season. But Larsa's basically in her confessional saying that, like, it's too many text messages. Like, girl, like, after a while, I stopped wanting to read because it's like, we're at this cancer event. Like, why would you do something like this and mess it up? So then you have Alexia in her confessional being like, well, girl, I don't send text messages. I call you when I have an issue. And she was like, this is a note to self, never to text Gertie. And I mean, I can't fault them because like, you exposing text messages, I probably wouldn't want to text you either. Okay, so I'll give them that point. So then Gertie is like, you know, it is what it is at this point. Everyone's trying to comfort Julia. And so Gertie is just kind of like, I'm sick of her messing with me. And so Lisa again asks, like, are y'all like not good? And Gertie's just like, it is what it is. Like, I don't care if we're good or not at this point. Like, I would like to move forward, but we're going to move forward with honesty. So Lisa is in her confessional saying, girl, this feels like Game of Thrones. They had to tell her what show, but she was like, you know, when the lady was walking down the street and they was like shaming her, it feels like Game of Thrones, like embarrassing. And she said, note to self, never mess with Gertie anymore. So then Stephanie is like, what are we doing? She was like, Gertie just gave her speech. Now we got the people doing the acrobats and flipping. She was like, this makes no sense. And so Marisol's in her confessional saying, girl, I'm going crazy. I have to leave this place. So Marisol ends up telling Gertie she didn't like that. And Gertie's like, it's okay. And she was like, you know, bye. And she leaves. Then she talks to Alexia and she's basically like telling Alexia, you need to have an open heart when it comes to this situation. Alexia's like, I always have an open heart. And Gertie's like, not so much, girl, but you need to have an open heart as we move forward in this group. So everyone's like, well, why did she do it? And that's when Gertie shares with Adriana and Lisa because she brought up them questions. Like, you said this was over, but it wasn't really over. So then we see Stephanie and Julia come and say goodbye to Lisa and Adriana. And Julia's like, why would she do this at a breast cancer or beating breast cancer event? And Adriana's trying to tell Julia, well, girl, it's because of you asking the dude Daniel that question in front of the group. Like, she's upset about that. So they decide to leave the party. Adriana kind of feels some type of way because she was like, honestly, I don't agree with what Gertie did, but I also think leaving the party is messed up as well. Gertie is taking pictures in front of her board that says, I'm in my me era, period, in the story. And I'm tickled. I am tickled. So then Stephanie is just like, yeah, I gotta go. Like, this feels weird. And she was like, and Adriana and her are having a conversation. And Stephanie was just like, it just don't feel right. And Adriana's like, well, you know, everybody deals with things differently. And Stephanie was like, yo, I get it. My mom was affected by cancer. But she was like, this is not the time or place. And I think that's the part. It's like I said, it's twofold. I think the women feel like this is premeditated, but they also feel like, girl, we had a cancer event in front of a bunch of people. And I think that's why they were like, girl, you humiliated her. But then again, it's like Julia did the same thing by throwing water on her. She did the same thing. So we even now. Yeah, we're even. So Adriana says in her confessional that she basically is like, she wants to hear both sides because she's friends with Gertie as well as Julia. So then the women are outside talking about it, saying that they don't like it. I'm just irritated with Gertie because now it's the same thing with Britt Edie. You have now made Julia the victim. And I'm pissed because Julia is no victim the same way Britt Edie to me wasn't a victim either. Like, you started it and they just retaliated. But I just feel like Gertie should have went about this a different way. There should have been a different event where it was just the ladies and she just starts sending the screenshots out to everybody and starts reading them out and like being like, let's go. Because that's the same thing I felt about Kenya's situation. If Kenya wanted to do the whole poster board situation, calling her Britt Edie a scamming, fraudulent hoe or whatever, she should have had a dinner where it was just the cast and exposed her that way. I think it would have went over well. Same with this, because as much as they're like, oh my God, I'm so offended, girl, Marisol, you know you my girl, but I remember you distinctly. I think it was either season 2 reunion or season 3 reunion. Maybe it was season 2 where you called your ailing father on the phone to prove a point to Leah. So girl, let's not ask about what's distasteful and what's like wrong and stuff like that. So, you know, Gertie is just like, she over it. She over it. We see Lisa and Adriana are still in the building with her. And Adriana basically tells Gertie, you have a right to defend yourself. And Gertie basically says Julia gets away with everything because she does that whole Betty Boop shtick where she's like, oh my gosh, like being very like cartoonish and very like, oh, she's like non-threatening. All the while she's like stabbing you in your back. And she's like, I'm over it. So then next thing you know, Stephanie comes out and Stephanie says that she wants to remain neutral. And everyone's like, girl, what? Then why are you outside? And she's like, well, I want to hear both sides. So then Alexia is like, Stephanie, if you're out here, then clearly you side with us. And like, go back inside and kiss Gertie's ass. And I said, Alexia, pump your brakes right there, girl. Because her wanting to remain neutral is not her kissing Gertie's ass. Let's not do that. Let's not do that. So Kiki goes outside, and then next thing you know, when she gets outside, Alexia and Stephanie are going back and forth because Stephanie tells Alexia, girl, don't tell me I'm kissing anybody's ass. Like, don't play in my face like that. And then that's when she brings up the whole Todd situation. She was like, it's the same thing with you bringing up my husband. Do you want me to bring up Masood? And so they arguing back and forth. And Stephanie's like, Alexia, you need to change your tone when you speak to me. You always barking at people, and I'm not the person to bark at. And I said, okay, Stephanie. Okay. And so she was like, so Alexia was like, I'm not barking at you, but you keep attacking my marriage. And Stephanie is like, I'm not attacking your marriage. And I'm not going in there to kiss Gertie's, you know what? I just want to remain neutral. And so then Alexia says something about like, if you want to be a part of this friend group, she said something about, it was with them arguing. I think she said your marriage can't be that great if you're a part of this friend group. And I was like, what? That didn't make sense to me. So they're arguing back and forth. And then Stephanie just gets so frustrated where she basically tells Alexia to like F off and she walks away from the group. Kiki walks inside and she's just like, girl, it's like World War II outside. The girls are just arguing back and forth and she's just like, it's too much going on. So she ends up saying that Stephanie and Alexia are arguing. And Lisa's like, about what? And Kiki's like, girl, I don't know. I think about Todd. It's too much going on. So then Kiki's like, what happened? I thought everything was fine. We're having this like beautiful moment. And then I come out, it's chaos. It is chaos, okay? So then we see this conversation go down because it looks like now the women are on the side of the church where Stephanie ends up saying, you know what? I'll never bring up Todd again because clearly it bothers you, but you need to learn how to speak to me. Like, you just need to learn how to speak to me. You then see Julia calling Martina, basically telling Martina, don't go to sleep because this girl just embarrassed me and I need to talk to you about it when I get to the house. Okay? So then we get back to Larsa, Marisol, and Alexia. And Larsa's like, girl, she did this in a church. Like, this just doesn't feel right. So then Marisol's like, girl, this is a church? This is a church. So then they flash back when Kiki ends up saying like, oh yeah, my mom used to go to church here. So then you hear Alexia say, what denomination are they? And I screamed. And so she was just like, you know what? It is what it is. And then you end up hearing Stephanie say, this is why I don't deal with sensitive people, because I'm not sensitive. So things don't be bothering me the way that they bother them. So Kiki's like, what's happening? Like, how do we move forward from this? And so Gertie ends up saying like, well, thank y'all for listening because nobody ever listens to me in this group and I had to get some things off my chest. And she's like, you know what? I'm done. So then Adriana gets up from sitting down with the women and she goes outside and she's like, I want to speak to Julia. So Julia's now with Alexia, Marisol, and Stephanie and them. And she basically says like, I wouldn't have done this, but clearly she's upset and she's frustrated and she needed to get this off her chest. So then you end up seeing Adriana speak to Julia, and I think they were speaking in French, where she's basically saying, girl, you need to show, why don't you show your text messages? So then Julia has the nerve to fix her mouth saying like, I'm not going to stoop down to Gertie's level. Girl, you are beneath her. Let's call a thing a thing. You're the only person in this entire group who decided to throw a drink at somebody. Okay, now I would say Adriana is too, because she smacked old girl in the face, but that lady deserved it because Adriana told her to get away from her and she was following her and being very aggressive. But you are the only person who threw a drink at somebody and it was not warranted. So if we're talking about stooping down to somebody's level, girl, Gertie could never get to your level because she's never done anything like that to anybody. So Adriana is just trying to push her to like, show your receipts, show your truth. She's showing her truth. So then you hear Alexia, Marisol, and Larsa talking where they're like, do you think they're going to be able to fix this? And they're like, they can't fix this. Like, I don't even know how we fix this. And then you hear them call Adriana delusional. So Gertie basically ends the episode by saying, you know what? I'm a warrior, I'm a survivor, and I'm no longer like, I'm not doing this no more. I'm doing things that serve me. Like that poster board says, I'm in my meat area, period, end of story. So you get what you get with me. And I said, this is chaos. Again, I feel like Gertie is so justified in sticking it. That's my favorite Wendy Williams gift where she's like, sticking it to Julia. I just wish she would have picked a different venue, the time and the place. But it was warranted. So I'm just like, baby, I wonder how things are going to change in this group because everyone seems very disgusted by Gertie's behavior. And I don't know. It might be a rough season for the rest of the ladies except for Adriana, Lisa, and Gertie when it comes to the fans, like critiques and opinions. Because everybody else they beating y'all up online. And y'all know Larsa's my girl, but girl, you should have kept your mouth closed. Because the dragging you're getting, it's warranted. But hey, it is what it is. Gertie did her big one with that one because she gagged that room. But yeah, y'all, that is it. That is all. As always, remember to be bravely authentic. Definitely hop down in them comments below and subscribe to the channel. Like the video. And I'm out, y'all. Deuces.